24 hours or so. So let's see. We are now being recorded. Okay. Today is July 16th. This is MS Office Hours. My wonderful co-host,
Heather Cox.
And David Perlman. So for the next half hour or so, we'll be having Stephen Scholz, who is a Microsoft employee. You can introduce yourself, Steve, and look forward to hearing about cloud app security.
Sure. Hey, guys. How you doing? Hello, everybody. My name is Steve Scholz. I am the Identity Security and Compliance Technical Specialist for the East Coast within U.S. Education. Today, we're going to talk about Microsoft Cloud App Security. We're not going to get to everything inside of Microsoft Cloud App Security because we could literally talk about Microsoft Cloud App Security for 8 hours straight if we truly wanted to. So it's going to be a really brief overview, some demos, and some Q&A afterwards. But if you're not familiar with Microsoft Cloud App Security, at its bare minimum, it is a CASB, a Cloud App Security Broker. In the world of Microsoft licensing, if you have M365A3, you have Office Cloud App Security, which is Microsoft Cloud App Security's little brother, if you will. So it's gives you protection around the Office products, and that's inside of A3. And if you're looking at A5 Security or A5 All Up, then you get Microsoft Cloud App Security. I do believe it's in the compliance package as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. So when you start to look at the top use cases around Microsoft Cloud App Security, it's a few different things. It's about discovering what apps people are using from a sanctioned perspective. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, hey, we're in higher education, we have academic freedom, we can't control where they're going and all these other things. When I show you what we mean by sanctioned and non-sanctioned apps, because we actually have a catalog of over 16,000 apps that we put a risk score on. 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. And I understand academic freedom, but if there's an app that's selling your data, that's not very secure, at the end of the day, you can unsanction that app. If you happen to be using something like Defender Advanced Threat Protection, it'll actually become what we call our client-side CASB. So even if somebody is off your network, it'll still block them from going to those cloud apps. And of course, you got sanctioned apps. So ones that you sanction, ones that you're controlling. It gives you DLP functionality in not just the Microsoft stack, but it'll also give you DLP functionality within things like Box, Dropbox, Salesforce, AWS. Sometime this year, and again, things have been changed around because of COVID-19 and focuses were realigned, but one of the things that we plan on doing is coming out with the ability for you to add your own app into that mix. So for instance, if there's an app that's not in our list of apps that we're protecting with Microsoft Cloud App Security, if it has CASB functionality, we're going to give you the APIs to actually add that app in on your own. Of course, there's cloud threats in there. So for instance, when you start to look at, let's say, Office Cloud App Security, you're going to see things like suspicious mailbox activity. The other big piece, and I'll show this to you when I start my demo out, is Microsoft is moving to a unified portal experience, if you will. So if you have A5, if you're looking at A5, or if you have any components of it, inside of security.microsoft.com, you're actually going to have the ability to see things under the incidents tab. You're going to see things under the hunting tab, and you're seeing that fold into a single portal. And what we're doing with the incidents is actually, instead of you saying, hey, okay, I see something going on within Cloud App Security, now I have to go look at this user's machine. Are they infected? Is their identity been compromised? We're actually taking all these alerts and putting them together for you from a single approach, so you can actually see what's going on from across the entire stack. When you look at Microsoft Cloud App Security, again, it's going to tie in quite a few different pieces. Azure Information Protection. Obviously, I'm using an older slide here because it says Windows Defender, and it should say Microsoft Defender because, saying Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection for Macintosh is probably a little weird, but so it's been named to Microsoft Threat Protection for quite some time now. Azure Active Directory, and I'll show you how that actually works with Azure AD and conditional access. So for instance, if somebody comes to your OneDrive or SharePoint or Teams library and they come from a device that's unknown, you can set up a policy that says, hey, it's going to be read-only. They can't download, they can't print, they can't do anything. They can only view it from the web, and it's a very easy policy to set up. From an Azure information protection, one of the things that we've done is Microsoft Cloud App Security used to have its own DLP engine. As a matter of fact, it still exists there today, but we generally say, hey, go ahead and use Azure information protection because that's the path that Microsoft is going. And we're unifying all of our information protection, our DLP, under a single umbrella, if you will. So even in Exchange, it used to have its own DLP engine. Now it calls Azure Information Protection. Azure Information Protection is there for classification and labeling. But when you start to look at DLP from things inside of, let's say, Box, OneDrive, there is some basic DLP inside of OneDrive and SharePoint, but Microsoft Cloud App Security extends that a little bit further from a data exfiltration. So we'll look at that and say, okay, hey, this is going to a country that you might not like from a trusting perspective. So I'm not going to let that leave my organization. Or I see that this content has been tagged as confidential and people are sharing it with external folks. And it's not just in the Microsoft world, it's within Google. And one thing I do want to mention about Google, if you're using the free version of Google for education, the CASB APIs are not opened up. It has nothing to do with Microsoft Cloud App Security, or if you're looking at Netscope or something like that. It's just the way Google has set it up for their education. If you have Google Education Enterprise, which costs money, they actually allow the CASB APIs. One thing to note is you can still get some functionality out of Microsoft Cloud App Security with Google. If you are using us for single sign-on, so we can actually proxy that into our CASB, you don't get the full proxy API functionality, but you do get some of the functionality there. Unified endpoint management. So one of the things that you'll start to notice is that Defender Advanced Threat Protection has also become our client-side DLP. So today, if you have Azure Information Protection policies and you have Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection deployed and enabled under advanced options inside of Defender ATP, you'll actually see it starting to report up. Let's say you have a policy that's looking for social security numbers. If somebody has documents on their Windows machine and you have Defender Advanced Threat Protection, it's going to report that up into Azure Information Protection. In public preview right now is the ability for it to become the client-side DLP. So if we see that and you want to apply policy to those, you can do that. Mentioned it's already going to be our client-side CASB for discovering shadow IT and also blocking certain applications, cloud apps. Azure Security Center, that's part of our cloud security posture. Same thing with the Secure Score, and you'll see the Secure Score, how the evolution of that has changed and how that's integrated into all our products, including Microsoft Cloud App Security. And the big piece is the Microsoft Intelligence Security Graph, and that's how all of our different products talk to each other. It's also how we're getting our threat intelligence, over 8.5 trillion signals on a daily basis from all over the place, whether it be inside of Azure, inside of Office 365, inside of Hotmail, Outlook.com, all the Windows devices that are using Microsoft Defender, just from an AV engine, from a consumer perspective, all reporting up. When you start to look at Microsoft Cloud App Security, again, it's discovery. If you have Defender Advanced Threat Protection, we'll do that from the client side. If you're using Microsoft Cloud App Security, you have the ability to stream your firewall logs to us so that we can look at that from a Cloud App discovery perspective, or you can upload your firewall logs to us. Streaming is usually the better route, just because if you have several gigs of firewall logs happening on a daily basis, trying to upload those, you can't do. Obviously, if you have Office Cloud App Security, you have to upload the firewall logs, and it's going to look at it from the collaboration application perspective, where Microsoft Cloud App Security looks at it from an entire shadow IT perspective. we give you the ability to manage those discovered apps. So again, one of the things that we've put into Microsoft Cloud App Security is integration with Azure Active Directory. So if you see a cloud app that supports something like SAML authentication, there's a two-click process to actually bring that application into your Azure Active Directory so that you can start managing that application. Excuse me, let me shut the door real quick here. So you can start managing that application from an identity perspective. App connectors, and I'll show you which apps that we have, and I'd mentioned that we're going to add the ability for you to add your own apps. And then, of course, conditional access. And if you're not familiar with conditional access, it is one of the key features to Azure Active Directory. It is one of the features that everybody is moving to Azure Active Directory about, because it gives you the ability to control who's coming into your applications, how they're coming into your applications, where they're coming into your applications, not only just from an MFA blocking, allowing, but also tying together with Microsoft Cloud App Security, limiting their access as well. It could be limiting their access, like I had mentioned, from a view-only perspective, or let's say you're using Azure Information Protection and you want to let them download that file, you can let them download that file. That file could have an Azure Information Protection policy on it that's read-only and expires in 24 hours. But the backend file is never changed. On the flip side of that, if you are connecting into something, let's say like Box or Dropbox, we can actually connect into those services with Microsoft Cloud App Security tied in with Azure Information Protection and go through that entire data store looking for information. So if you're looking for certain compliances and stuff like that, we can do that as well. Talked already about the architecture with Microsoft Defender Advanced Threat Protection. From a shadow IT perspective, we're going to, outside your firewall proxy, we're going to collect that information. Oops, sorry. And pull that together for you so we can give you, where people are going, what IP addresses they're going to, and what the users are from that aspect of it. One of the other things that I should note too is, again, as we're collapsing all of our stuff, if you happen to use Azure Advanced Threat Protection today, you'll notice in there that if you see an alert, or even if you just open up Azure Advanced Threat Protection, it says try out the new view. When you click on that, it actually brings you into Microsoft Cloud App Security. So that is going to be what Azure Advanced Threat Protection turns into. And I'm not the marketing guy. I don't come up with the naming conventions. And if you're not familiar with what Azure Advanced Threat Protection is, it has nothing to do with Azure other than the fact it runs in Microsoft's cloud, which happens to be Azure. It is a tool that has sensors that get installed on your domain controller, so it can look for things like pass the hash, skeleton key, those types of attacks into your on-premise identities, and then report that out to Azure Advanced Threat Protection. For those that have A3 or have A3, the little brother to that would be Advanced Threat Analytics. Please note that Advanced Threat Analytics, we are no longer putting investment into Advanced Threat Analytics, and January of 2021, that product will reach its end of life. From a support perspective, there'll still be extended support, but from a mainstream support, it's going to lose its support there. So if you're using it, please note that. Again, Microsoft Information Protection, Discover, Classify, Protect, Monitor across data's devices, apps, cloud services, and on-premise. And that is becoming our single approach to classify, labeling, protecting documents from that aspect of it. Real quick, when you look at conditional access, and I'll show you a demo of this as we go along, but again, when we proxy those apps into Microsoft Cloud App Security, we can actually enforce app data restrictions. Again, not only just limiting their access, we can deny their access, we can actually apply Azure Information Protection policies and so forth. This is just a quick graphical view of what that looks like. So a user comes in from an unmanaged device, and that's really how I have it set up, but I'm using mine within SharePoint. As a matter of fact, if you want to set something up that's like like this within SharePoint, Teams, or OneDrive, it's actually, there's an automated process within of conditional access. When you actually say limit, it'll actually create the policies inside of Microsoft Cloud App Security for you. But basically what happens is, the user, it shows that the user is marketing, the config is open, they're coming from Red Bank, New Jersey, last sign in was 3 hours ago. Everything's fine. It's coming from a Windows Me machine. It's fully patched, but it's an unmanaged device, so it's not being managed by Intune or SCCM. So the session risk goes up to a medium. Based on that, the server session actually gets proxied. And what happens is when the app comes through, what we're going to do is go ahead and proxy that app to the user. And when the user actually looks at that, we're going to prevent them from downloading it. We're going to just allow view only. So even if they try and print it, the functionality of printing that document requires them to download it. Even if they were going to print it inside of the web view, it still requires the file to be downloaded, and that gets blocked. And they actually download a placeholder text file that lets them know that the downloading was blocked. So real quick, rogue applications, data exfiltration, compromised accounts, ransomware, malware, malicious insiders. These are all the things that Microsoft Cloud App Security can do and protect you from. And again, it's across all the different cloud apps that you have within your organization. So again, malware planted in cloud apps, malicious OAuth applications, and that's a big one these days where people, especially if you don't have the right settings in, let's say, Azure Active Directory, just allowing any OAuth application to use your credentials. Again, multiple failed login attempts. The one thing that's different, so Office Cloud App Security will give you some information on that from an OCAS perspective, but Microsoft Cloud App Security actually reaches into Azure Active Directory from a different channel, so it gets that in very near real time. So it can actually see that. It is also can look at what we call suspicious inbox mail rules, delete, forward, especially if we start to increase that risk score because somebody logged in from an unknown location, impossible travel scenario. Then they went in and created an inbox mail rule, started doing a hard delete based on emails that they were sending out, those types of things. Used to be what we called Fish Hunter. Now it's part of Microsoft Cloud App Security, and the automation of the remediation is actually part of Office Advanced Threat Protection P2 when it comes to that. Different indicators of compromise. Again, I talked about activity from suspicious IPs, people coming in from IP addresses that are known botnets, anonymous IP addresses. And, some of these you'll have to adjust as you see fit, just because we know that, the whole higher education population is using Tor browsers and stuff like that. So those are things that you have to take into consideration. A lot of your students are going to be forwarding emails where you might want to allow that from the student side of the house, but from the faculty side of the house, that's probably something that you don't want to allow because it's, the school's information that they're moving to an email system that doesn't belong to you. Impossible travel between sessions, login attempts from suspicious agent. So we're actually tracking. And one of the things that we had when we had Fish Hunter, for instance, was some of the bad guys actually created their own operating system. They gave their own operating system a name and a version number. So when it came in, it didn't look like, Linux. It didn't look like Windows. It had its own name and version number. And the minute we've seen that operating system, we know exactly that it was a bad actor because they were the only ones that were using it. Same thing. So suspicious user agents, malicious use of end user account, unusual file share activity, file download. So you'll see indicators inside of Microsoft Cloud App Security, mass downloads from a single user, those types of things where you can see data exfiltration going out. All that stuff is part of Microsoft Cloud App Security. A lot of this stuff, the alerts inside of both MCAS and OCAS are turned on by default from an alert perspective. It requires you to go in and say, okay, I'm going to change this alert into an action like stop the user, block the user, kick them out of their sessions, make them log in again, those types of things. And of course, malicious use of privileged user as well, unusual impersonated activity, administrative activity, and deleted VMware. I'm sorry, was there a question from somebody? maybe not. And again, just threat detection, getting different alerts. Like I said, we've got plenty of alerts in it you can turn on. You can connect this into a SEM system. You can investigate and remediate directly from within Cloud App Security as well. Just some of the screenshots that you can see from within Microsoft Cloud App Security. So cloud activities, via Azure AD, IP address, Office 365, and MCAS. On-premise activity. So again, combining Azure Advanced Threat Protection, because that's going to give you the on-premise stuff, into your cloud world as well, so that instead of you saying, hey, okay, we've seen this user log in, what's happening from the on-premise world, we're putting that all together. We're also doing that from the user side of the house. So we actually give the user a score, so it lets you know which users that you should actually go look at first and do some investigation on, an investigation score. Again, some more on-premise alerts via Azure Advanced Threat Protection, cloud alerts via MCAS, and just a cloud alert from Azure Active Directory. So we're trying to put everything into a single location as far as your cloud apps are concerned. User investigation, as I talked about, investigation priority score. You can see all these pluses, plus 23, plus 3, plus 23. So you can see every time like one of those happens, that increases that person's score. So you can see why their score is going up. You can see over here 2 different alerts, accounts that they're accessing, devices they're accessing, what location, just who the email is, their phone number, manager, if that stuff is being synchronized out. And just from a malware detection, we're also going to do malware detection within the product as well. So especially if the app is proxying files through us, we're going to scan those files before they come in and out of the system. One thing I do wanted to show you guys real quick. So if we come over here and we go to new in private window, we go to office.com. I'm going to log in as my dog Bo Cephas. Those that know Hank Williams Jr. My school logo is better than yours, no matter what you think. And I'm going to do a little MFA here. You'll notice that I'm doing MFA. I'm going to approve the signer. So again, I authenticated, I approved, did MFA, everything came in. I'm actually going to come in and I'm going to go into home. Let me see here. I'm going to go inside of Teams. When I go inside of Teams, you're going to see a couple teams that I'm part of. You'll notice up top that Teams is already getting proxy through. So if you notice, my URL is going to be a little bit different. So it's teams.microsoft.us.cas.ms. Use the web application. When I go into Princeton's here, we go into files. You'll see I have access to some files. And we're going to pick on the DOE device management one. And when I go into here, you'll see that I have access to it. So it's waiting for Excel. I have access to it. But if I come actually here and I say, let's say, print, it'll open up print. I hit continue. It's basically going to give me, that didn't work as, I hate the demo gods.
The dog's fault, Steve.
I know it is. There we go. Download. So download is blocked. You can see that download's blocked. If I open up the file here, it opens up on the other screen, but you can see that the file was blocked. So, and again, this policy here is very easy to set up. It's a conditional access policy. So the good thing about conditional access policies, and I know we're running out of time, Dave, is that you can set up multiple conditional access policies on the same app. So if you have some high value users and you need to protect their data more than others, you can actually create a conditional access policy just for them, so that those apps, so that these apps actually get proxied for them. A couple more things I wanted to show here. So this is security.microsoft.com incidents tab. Again, it's going to put all the incidents together from a single location. You can see I have multiple endpoints doing this, but from a cloud app security perspective, this is the one I wanted to show. So from a cloud app security perspective, you'll see that Michael Romero, 515 score. You can see impossible travel scenario. all things going on with him. So you can see that he's got 4 different alerts. If we actually go into those alerts, you can see all the different alerts from Michael. And let me just go into the dashboard here. So you'll see 40 different alerts, users to investigate. The MTP Global Reader, that's the demo account that everybody uses. So it's got a very high score because I logged in from New York. Somebody else just logged in from Toronto. Another guy just logged in from Louisiana. So there's lots of impossible travel scenarios going on there. When you actually look at the app connector, it's easy to connect apps, and I need to do that from this particular one because I don't have access to it from there. But you can see all the different apps that you can connect in here: Box, Dropbox, Cisco, Amazon, Workday, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Okta, Google Cloud Platform. So you can connect into all those different apps and actually get policies set up for them. And if we actually go into control, you'll see a bunch of different templates in here that you can choose. I don't know who's got all that noise going on. Files shared with unauthorized domains. So let's say you want to stop files from going to different domains. You can actually look inside a G Suite, see everything that you can do from a G Suite perspective, do from a Box perspective. And this is just data exfiltration, DLP, if you will. But let's say Box, we actually have the ability to connect into Box and go through all your documents there. Just about 3 minutes left, Dave.
Thanks, Steve. Couple quick questions. So in regards to what we used to call Fish Hunter, how does CASB, kind of what parts or pieces of that, just from a clarification perspective?
Yeah, so Microsoft Cloud App Security was a very important part of Fish Hunter, but what it did not do is tie a lot of the pieces. So like if we were to go into the incidents tab here, we'll go into this machine, this one over here. If we go into the incidents here, this is really what Fish Hunter used to be. When you look at the different incidents that we have, and you'll see the demo incident. When you look at the actual investigations inside of here, what Fish Hunter did is it raised the risk score on a user, it raised the risk score on a mailbox, and then took certain actions. So for instance, if I come in here and I go, mail is zapped, zap is 0-hour auto purge, you'll actually see that we have automated investigation inside of Office 365 now. So this is the actual Fish Hunter piece, or what used to be called Fish Hunter piece, but it is going across all the different stacks now. In the past, it was just Azure Active Directory, Microsoft Cloud App Security, and Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. Now it's going across Defender Advanced Threat Protection, Office Advanced Threat Protection, Azure Advanced Threat Protection, Azure Active Directory, and Microsoft Cloud App Security as well. Excellent.
No, that's really helpful. Does that answer your question, Steve? Yep, it sounds like it answers our question. So another question we had, Steve, if folks are on, whatever, A3, they've implemented, some of the basic security things in A3, and they start thinking about cloud app security, where do you kind of start thinking about that deployment?
So
in terms of,
I was going to say, in terms of what?
In terms of when you're thinking about a cloud app security deployment, what are some of the things that we should be thinking about prior to just turning that on?
Yeah, so, Microsoft Cloud App Security. So first of all, Office Cloud App Security will protect your Office environment. So the M365 environment, if you will. Microsoft Cloud App Security takes that a step further. So it's going to, if you have certain apps like Box, Dropbox, Google, that you need to protect those cloud apps, you need to limit access to certain things. So it depends on your needs. And of course, especially from the shadow IT and discovery, we really didn't even dive into that. But again, we have the whole risk score when it comes to the different apps. And we have, I think it's over, I want to say 70 pieces of criteria that we're scoring an app on. So we show you each one of them why, so you can understand why we gave them a certain score or didn't. And then you can make your own judgment on that. But it depends on, again, where you need to go from especially if you're going to be looking at something like Netscope or something like that, it's part of the products already. So make sure you look at it. And of course, inside of Gartner, we scored very high on the CASB portion in the last year.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Steve, super informative. Really always appreciate your time when we can get it. And maybe we'll have you back and talk about Secure Score at some point. That's kind of what I heard. What did you hear, Heather?
I heard next year, definitely.
Well, good news. This is the start to the Microsoft fiscal year, so it's already part of the next year. But thank you again. I'm going to stop recording here real quick. Steve, thank you. Appreciate it. Heather, any parting thoughts?